You cannot abandon them. If you are there, like at a scene of an accident, and you leave, you can be held liable for what happens to that person. After you start, if you start care, if you call 911, they're going to tell you not to leave. They're going to tell you that not to leave. And if they say, can you put something under their feet to elevate their feet? That's what keeps people from going into shock. Or cover them with a blanket, cover them with a jacket. That's not hard to do. If somebody asks you to do that, there's really no reason that you can't do that. A 10-year-old, a 5-year-old can do that.
Yeah, but then I feel like I have now put myself as the caretaker and I have to help them now.
But you're already on the phone with 911 and you know help is going to be there sometime within, 5 to 15 minutes. So why can't you stay? Why can't you do that? If you don't do anything else but that, what they've told you to do, that's not too much to ask. Because that little bit of just that right there could save their life. Why would you not do that? Why would you not do that? This is not rocket science. And you're not going to go to jail for that as well. Okay? All right, so must you give first aid? We already talked about that. We already talked about the fact that you are not obligated to act. But I also need you to know that there are some exceptions. There are always exceptions. There are a few people who are obligated to act. Who do you think those people might be?
First responders.
Okay. Who else? Anybody else? Doctors? Who else? I'm not saying those are right. I'm just saying I want to hear who you think who are obligated to act. What?
Like a paramedic that's not on the job.
Paramedics that are not on the job?
Like not
They're
at
off
work
duty?
right now, yeah.
Can you think of anybody else? That would be an exception, that they do have to act.
Like an athletic trainer, maybe?
An athletic trainer? Parents. Okay? These are the exceptions. You are not obligated to act. The exception is you, if you start. Then you have to continue. So that's the exception to I don't have to help. You do if you start. Anybody does if they start. The second person that's going to have to do that is a first responder. The exception is you're a first responder and it is your job responsibility. First responder, EMT, paramedics, police, firefighters, lifeguards. But unless they're off duty, if they're on duty, they absolutely do have to act. But if they are off duty, it's their night off, they're on their way to the movie with their husband or wife, and there's a car accident. They do not have to act. They're off duty. I will tell you that most of the time they will because it's their natural instinct. It's their natural instinct to act. But they don't have to. They cannot be held legally responsible if they're off duty. There's the exception. A parent or a guardian has to act. They have to act. If the child is in danger, injured, they have to act. I can't imagine a parent that wouldn't, but there are situations based on religion that they may not. But a parent or a guardian has to act.
What if they don't know how?
If they listen, acting can be as simple as calling 911. But just to let them lay there, and not even do anything, not call, not anything, that's not acting. If acting is nothing but calling 911, that's acting. But just to let them lay there and suffer, bleed to death, die, whatever, that is not acting. Okay? And the fourth person, I think there's a fourth person. I guess not. So those are what?
So I have a question. You said acting is actually just calling the police, but you said once you start, you can't stop. So if they tell you to do something, wouldn't it necessarily be your obligation?
We just had that conversation. They can say, they will probably say to you, can you help them? Can you follow my directions? Can you put something under their feet? That's what I just had that conversation with Jay. You can refuse to do that.
But that won't be like,
Not unless you're a parent, you know. But the bottom line is you're probably going to act just out of compassion. And sometimes you're going to act just out of instinct. People just do. They just do. Unless they're so freaked out that they don't know how.
What if it's like a babysitter and then it's taking off their kid?
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Hang on to that. All right. This is where consent comes in. 2 of your vocabulary phrases that were in the back and they're on your vocabulary. One is consent, expressed and implied consent. And we're going to talk about what those mean because I just got through saying you have to get consent. And now the question is, what if you're a babysitter and there are no parents? We're going to talk about that right now. Okay? So, before you help, you must get their consent. You have to say to them, I'm here to help you. Can I help you? I need to put pressure on this bleed. Can I? And if they tell you no, don't touch me, don't touch them. Don't touch them. Now, there's some exceptions. We're going to talk about that as well. Don't touch them. Touching another person without consent can be criminal, and it's called battery. Sometime you ought to look up the definition of criminal battery. Even if you get close enough to somebody and you're in anger and you're ranting and raving and you spit on them, like, that happens all the time sometime when you're just talking. That can be considered battery if it is threatening and if that person feels like you are, like they're in danger. You should read what all battery consists of. So if they tell you no, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me, and you do, it could be, now you would have to prove it, but it could be considered battery. Don't touch them. There are some exceptions, and we'll get to that in just a minute. What you do want to do is to try to convince them. Listen, if you're going to bleed out, you're going to bleed to death if you don't let me put some pressure on this and stop the bleeding. That's all I'm going to do. Tell them I'm trained in first aid or I'm trained in whatever, and I can help you. You try to convince them. Don't just don't say, okay, well, go ahead, bleed to death then. With an attitude, try to convince them, let me help you. Let me just put, that's all I'm going to do. And most of the time, unless they're not competent, which we'll talk about in a minute, most of the time they're going to let you. Hopper.
what if the kid is like, no, don't touch me, and then his mom is like, help my child?
The parent of a minor has to give consent. It doesn't matter what the child says. And we are going to talk about how you go about doing that if it's a child and the parent says, yes, do it, and the child is screaming. Of course the child's going to be screaming. They're scared to death. But if the parent says, help us, help us, help us, help us, then you're obligated. You're not obligated, but they're giving you consent to do it. You should do it. You go with what the parent says, not the child. But there's a way to approach the child so that it's easier to administer first aid to them. Okay? You just got to make sure that if they say no, you don't touch them, Chris.
Shouldn't the mother already be helping them?
You would think. But you have to remember, as a parent, when your child is injured, you're probably going to be freaking out. And I'll tell you this, just FYI, guys, it's going to be the mother that's freaking, and the dad is going to be the one who's going to have his head together and is going to be the one to do something. I can tell you that, being a mother, when you see your child is hurt or injured, you're freaking out, and you're going to be saying to the dad, do something, help him, help him, help him. So dads, I'm just saying, guys, you're going to be the ones that are going to have to act. More likely, you're going to be the ones to have to act. So you got to keep your head together. Just saying. Well,
Okay, so let's say like there's this kid playing in the street and he gets hit by a car or something. No parents are around, everybody's in the house. He's still conscious. He says he doesn't want help. He doesn't want help, but he's like 5. Like, what do you do?
go to the parent. Get the parent. If the parent...
Okay, what if they were by themselves at home with no parent?
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
There are some exceptions, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Okay? The other thing is, this is expressed. And that was one of your vocabulary words. It is expressed if they give you permission. They say, yes, help me, help me, help me. Then it's expressed, and you can do it then. Talk to them calmly. Say, my name is whatever. And all I'm going to do is, I'm going to put some gauze on here. We're going to put some pressure on this to stop this bleeding. I've got and tell them, you should already have called 911 if it's bad enough, or had someone else call 911. So tell them, help is coming. All I'm going to do is I'm going to stay with you. Try to talk to them, try to calm them down if you need to do that, but only if they give you consent. If they say no, you're going to try to convince them to let you help them. That's what you need to do. And then, if it is a parent, if a parent is present, they have to give consent. If the parent is not there and the child is a minor, hang on to that. We'll get to it in a minute. Okay, let's do one thing at a time. But they must give consent. And we all know that there are times when the parents aren't there. You're with a babysitter, you're with a brother or sister or a neighbor, and no one expects an accident to happen where you may need to give consent, but it does. So what are we going to do? We'll talk about that. Then there is implied consent. Now, express consent means that person is responsive and they can talk to you or they can shake their head. It might be that they can't talk, but if you say, can I help you? Can I just put some pressure on this bleed? They shake their head because they can't talk. They shake their head, yes. That is express consent. It is implied. What if the victim is unconscious and they can't talk or shake their head? That's the difference in expressed and implied. Implied means they are unresponsive and you need to assume or there is no parent and it's a minor child. No parents present. You're babysitting. It becomes implied. So you have permission. The law says that if they cannot express their consent, it becomes implied and you may give help. Or if it's a child, a minor child, and the parents are not present, you may give consent. Now, how about this one? This is probably, as strange as it sounds, one of the best things that can happen if a person says, no, 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 don't touch me, don't touch me. Let's say they're responsive, and you say, can I help you? I'm here to help you. Can I just feel the back of your head because, you think they've had a spinal injury? Because there's a way, and I'm going to teach you how to do this, to check to see if they may have a spinal injury. I just need to check. Squeeze their fingers, squeeze their toes. Can you feel that? And you say, can I do that? And they say, no, 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 don't touch me, don't touch me. And then they pass out. That's the best thing that could happen. Because now that consent that they would not give you becomes implied. And as long as they're unresponsive, you can help them. Now, if they say, no, 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 don't help me, it is not okay for you to knock them out. So that your consent then becomes implied. Say, okay, well, you say, no, 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 I'll just knock you out. And then it's implied, I can help you. Please don't do that. I'm just saying. The best thing sometimes that can happen, and it will happen, they will pass out. Maybe from a loss of blood or from shock or whatever. They've had a concussion and they were conscious originally and now they're not. Then you've got to go ahead. Go do what you need to do. Yes, Lauren.
So there is no way they can press charges, like if they come to and they say, I told you, you couldn't. Okay, just check.
Nope. No. If they were conscious and said no, they pass out and you help them, and they come to and they realize you've helped them, they can't do anything to you. As long as they're out, you have implied consent. Serene.
What if the victim's like 16, but they're still a minor? Would you need the parents' consent?
Nope. Not if the parent's not there. It's implied. Now, somebody said last period, what if they fight you? Like, if they're 16 and they're as big as you and you're trying to help them, don't fight somebody. Don't fight somebody. Call 911. They'll get there and they'll restrain them. But guys, what are you going to do? Fight? You going to fight somebody to help them? If they're old enough and strong enough that they could fight you, they probably don't really need your help to start with. I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? They don't. So, but anyway, even if they're laying on the ground and you know they need help and they try to hit you or push you away. Now, if they're pushing you away, you gotta go. But like if they're literally trying to fight you, don't fight them. Don't fight them.
Okay, what if someone really is in need of help, like if they fall and have a serious head injury or really get a bad burn or something, but they're refusing your help, and when you say that you're going to call 911, they're trying to leave, but they really do need help?
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. You still, first of all, if it's that bad, you should already have called 911. You are in the process of calling or sent someone to, or had someone else call. So they're on their way, and you need to you just tell them. You say, I've already called 911. They're on their way. If they're trying to leave, see, a lot of times that may happen because they're on the run. Maybe they're on drugs and they don't want to get caught and they don't want 911 to come because if they go to the hospital, they'll test positive for drugs or alcohol. So they don't want you to call 911 and they're going to leave even if they're injured, if they're badly burned or something. You also have to remember that if that's the case, they probably aren't in pain. If they are on drugs or they're intoxicated, they probably don't feel the injury anyway. It's the truth. So they think they're okay to go, and you know they're not. There's nothing you can do. Chris?
You know how you said that they say, no, you can't help them, and they pass out, and then you start helping. What if they, come back,
Just said that. As long as you help them and they were unconscious, you are completely covered.
and they wake up, do you, stop, or?
Not unless they, if they come to and they say stop, you got to stop. But whatever you've already done, they can't sue you for. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, really quickly, what time is it? I know. Okay, so you know what we're doing here. You know where we're going. Okay, when it comes to refusing consent, there are some specifications. Okay, if the victim is telling you, no, don't help me, they need to be competent. That was a vocabulary word. Basically, that means they understand what's happening. This chick right here, she may be rolling her eyes around and she may be going, She may be responsive, but she has no clue what's going on. Even though she's responsive, it is implied consent because she's not in touch with reality. If your person is not in touch with reality, you have implied consent. So if they're intoxicated, if they're drugged, and there's some other we're going to look at all the reasons that this person is not competent, then you can help them. Now again, if they're intoxicated, they're injured, and they trying to fight you, then back off. You already got 911 coming, or you're in the process of doing that. Let 911 take care of them. You don't need to. You don't have to.
But you can't leave though, right?
I would not. No, don't leave. Guys, they're going to tell you when you call 911, you cannot leave the scene.
What do they do if you do? You're in legal trouble?
You probably will be if they could figure out who you are. And they will from your cell phone. I mean, they can figure that out. Most people aren't going to do that anyway. They're there. They stop to help to start with, so they're not. Okay, so who's not competent? Who's incompetent? Just who we just said. People who are intoxicated. People who are drugged. These people, even though they may be responsive, based on what they're saying or what they're doing, that they have no clue what's going on, then they are not competent and you have implied consent. Do what you need to do. People who have an altered mental state, either they are mentally handicapped or they've had a concussion. And they may be responsive, but they can't tell you their name. They can't tell you where they are. They can't tell you what happened. They're responsive, but they don't know what's going on. You have implied consent. And anybody who has dementia, Alzheimer's, and they do not know what's going on, you have implied consent. If you think that person is mentally incompetent, your consent becomes implied and you are legally covered. Okay? You learned something that you didn't know before you got in here today?
Yes.
All right, we're not done, but we will finish tomorrow.